Hi, and welcome to the Lewis and Clark State Historic Site. My name is Ben, and I work here as a site interpreter. And today I want to talk to you about a pretty important meeting between Lieutenant Governor Carlos de Delassus and Captain Meriwether Lewis that happened on December 8th of 1803. Now, this meeting is really important because it is a representation of some of the bigger international politics that are clashing at this time. Delassus is administering the Upper Louisiana Territory for Spain in place of France. France is selling the territory to the United States, but the Spanish are still taking care of things, running things day to day, administering the government there. And so they're pursuing their own interest in the New World and in this territory. They're not exactly keen on the fact that France has sold this territory to the United States. But more importantly, France has given up its role in the New World. It's given up Louisiana, it lost Haiti in a revolution, and they're going to focus on Europe for a while. Spain, on the other hand, still has some claims that they're focused on, that they're trying to turn into colonies to further their empire. And if you look at this map here, you will see that there is this area, this disputed territory. And that territory is where the British and the Spanish both have claims, and they're afraid the Americans are going to put claims to the territory that are not yet theirs within the Louisiana Purchase. So that's some backstory there. Early December 1803, Captain Lewis rides ahead of the expedition to meet with whoever is running St. Louis to get a feel for the land and the situation there. He will first arrive in Cahokia in the Illinois country. This is a French city where fur trappers and some of the American Indians have been living for some time. There's some Spanish, there's some British, and there's Americans that have already moved to this area. And so he will meet some movers and shakers of the town there, a John Hay, the postmaster of the area, and Nicholas Giroux, who is a fur trader, a businessman, a politician. He kind of knows everyone in St. Louis and Cahokia and Kaskaskia. So these two guys, realizing what Captain Lewis's purpose is, offer their service. They offer to act as translators for Captain Lewis because he speaks neither French nor Spanish, which are the languages that Delassus speaks, and so they'll help translate for him at this meeting. They take a ferry over to St. Louis and have a meeting with who Lewis calls the Commandant, Lieutenant Governor Carlos de Delassus. Now you have to remember, there's going to be a rub here. Spain's not really ready to give up this territory, and they're worried that the Americans have some goals to move out further than the territory that is due them. But while there is some friction in this meeting, it's overall pretty cordial. What we know of this meeting is that very quickly that Delassus will say that the Americans cannot camp or travel up the Missouri. They're going to have to stay in the Illinois countryside. So at least for this next winter, the Mississippi River, what is the Illinois country here, will still be the west coast of the United States. And he explains to them that I have hinted to him that my orders did not permit me to consent to his passing to enter the Missouri River, and that I was opposing him in the name of the king, my master. And so they make it very clear they're not allowed to travel any further. Now, Captain Lewis is still not quite sure that they even have the right to do that. In his letter to Jefferson, he says, I wasn't going to discuss that. I came on peaceful terms and knew that we could not travel much further, so he didn't want to argue the point and ruin his relationship with the lieutenant governor. Captain Lewis will then lay out his paperwork. He's got a letter of introduction from Thomas Jefferson. He will also lay out a British passport and a French passport. These had been received in Washington, D.C. to allow the expedition to travel. They never got a Spanish passport. They assumed the French would already be administering the territory. And the relationship between the Spanish ambassador and the Secretary of State, James Madison, in Washington, D.C. is intense. Ambassador Irujo does not much care for the Americans, and he is certainly not going to give them a passport to travel through Spanish territory. So Lewis is finding a different person than he expected. He is expecting the French to already be running this place, and so he's got the wrong paperwork, if you will. But he does sit down and explain his goals to travel the Missouri River, meet with some of the American Indian tribes, and really focuses on the scientific aspects of the expedition. What he leaves out is that they're trying to travel all the way to the Pacific Ocean, not just to the end of the Missouri River. So he's keeping that secret for the time being. Now, like I said, this is overall a pretty friendly meeting. These two are gentlemen, and they realize that they can still get along. In fact, Delassus will invite Giraud, Hay, and Lewis to stay the night with him after this meeting. So he's a good host all in all. But you have to remember that he's still looking out for Spanish interests. And so in his letters, he will be sending back the troop numbers, his estimate of how many people Lewis and Clark are bringing with them, their location and where they're camping, and what he thinks their ultimate goal is. He will write, "I should inform your excellencies that according to advices, I believe that his mission has no other object than to discover the Pacific Ocean, following the Missouri, and to make intelligent observations, because he has the reputation of being a very well-educated man and of many talents." So it's very clear to Delassus that they're not just going to stop at the end of the Missouri River. They're going to be looking at claims past the Louisiana Territory. And he's warning Spain about this ahead of time. So Delassus is going to keep an eye on Lewis and Clark. He will actually let Lewis and Clark and a handful of soldiers at any one time come into St. Louis, in part so he can keep an eye on their activities. Delassus is also pretty friendly in that he offers up a place for them to camp at the confluence of the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, which is ultimately where they will camp at Camp River du Bois. It's on the Illinois side, and it's one that Nicholas Giraud will also suggest for them. So Lewis is pretty happy that Delassus is doing his best, given the situation, and while he's frustrated they can't travel further west or stay in St. Louis, he'll accept the situation as he can. Overall, a pretty tough meeting that is met on mostly friendly terms. But you have to see this zoomed out. This is a rubbing point, a friction point between the American territory and their push west and the Spanish. So this is like a tectonic plate. This is a place where there's going to be a lot of rubbing, a lot of friction, and there's going to be some clashes later on with the Spanish and the Americans over land claims. And so both of them realize the gravity of this meeting, and it looks like their friendly nature and the fact that they were mostly open about their intents made for a peaceful meeting. But that's why Lewis and Clark do not camp in St. Louis, even though that was their original goal, to actually be further up the Missouri River. And that's why they're going to set up at Camp River du Bois on December 12th of 1803. So if you check back in another day or two, I'll have a video talking about why Lewis and Clark chose their camp here at the confluence of the Mississippi and Missouri River. I want to thank you for watching today. You can check out more of our videos and more information about our site at campdubois.com and on our Facebook page.